Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Razan Pereira. India's quasi-judicial appeals body dealing with corporate law cases on Wednesday reinstated Cyrus Mistry as the executive chairman of Tata Sons, the holding company of the Tata Group, 3 years after he was sacked due to non-performance. The National Company Law Appellate Tribunal termed Mistry's removal in October 2016 by Tata Sons as illegal and made him chairman again, querying the pitch for the Salt to Software conglomerate headed by the soft-spoken N. Chandrasekaran, who replaced him. The NCLAT also set aside Tata Sons' decision to convert itself into a private company and accepted Mistry's argument that Tata Sons, as well as its directors and shareholders, acted in prejudicial and oppressive manner towards minority shareholders. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze the NCLAT verdict on chairmanship of Tata Sons. Joining me on the program today are Ajay Brahme, corporate lawyer, Shubhamoy Bhattacharjee, consulting editor of the Business Standard, and Ajay Shankar, former secretary, DIPP, Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. All right, let me first begin the program with you, Shubhamoy. So let's try and understand and analyze what is the crux of the issue really.
This entire court case actually started with the NCLT, the National Companies Law Tribunal. And there the tribunal, Cyrus Mistry, when after he was removed as chairman of the Tata Sons, saying that I was removed wrongly, and secondly, I also represent a strong body of minority shareholders, which is the Shapoorji Pallonji Group, and my interest as a minority shareholder has been hit, has not been taken care of, and so therefore I am looking for redress. These were the two issues that they took it on to. The NCLT shot it down, among many other things. Now, in the 3-year battle, one of the issues that did come up was that whether Cyrus's has the right to go back if he wins the court case as the chairman of the group. That was an important point. But the Cyrus's team also agreed that that was not a remedy that they were looking for. And therefore, the point was, what is it therefore that they were looking for? The NCLT, the Appellate Tribunal, which took up the case after it was shut down by NCLT, has agreed that Cyrus should be reinstated as the chairman of the group. Now, this is a remedy which he had not even asked for, yet it has been offered. And it has been offered, this is the first point, that at a time when he has not only moved 3 years away from the group, but the group itself, the constitution of the boards of all the groups, of all the group companies, have also considerably changed. So essentially, the court is trying to reverse the 3 years of development in the Tata Group, including the fact that the Tata Group also had moved its Tata Trust, which holds about 66% of the shareholding of the Tata Group, from a public listed company to a private listed company, and said even that move is not correct, is not kosher, and that also has been asked to be rolled back. So there are two things that the court has done. The one part, which is the issue about rollback of the Tata Sons removal from a public listed to private company, privately held company. Now, that is something which can be, the Supreme Court may or may not, that's an issue that is a debatable one. But more difficult is the fact that the court has given a relief which the party had not asked for.
Right.
And therefore now it has put the entire Tata Group in a crisis that for 4 weeks, till the time the Tata Group files its appeal and the case goes up to Supreme Court, and we don't know when Supreme Court will give its judgment, the entire work of this $110 billion, what we call the Salt to Software group, will be in jeopardy, and that puts a serious crisis for the Indian economy, that the Tata Group is a very major part of the Indian economy.
Right. All right. So, Ajay Brahme, let me bring you to the picture now. So, as far as what Shubhama has just explained, there are 2 or 3 aspects to all of this. We'll take them up individually. But first and foremost, what is the jurisdiction of the NCLAT first, and can it really reinstate a chairman who has been sacked by the board?
NCLAT can certainly do that. They have that power under section 242, that with 241. 241 is whenever you file a case for operation. So Cyrus Mistry, I mean the group that was led by him, argued that the conduct of trustee nominated directors, if I may say so, that is of the 2 people, Mr. Tata and Mr. Soonawala, that has been such, it has been such that they were actually oppressive to the minority shareholders. And so the NCLAT has observed that just 2 trustee nominee directors, they cannot decide as to who gets, as to what gets approved in the board. So, and when coming to the power or the jurisdiction of NCLAT in fact also has a power to in fact order winding up in case it really shows that the company has not been doing, I mean the functioning has not been as required and as is required under the law. So NCLAT certainly has that power, and that's what has been exercised in my opinion. Now coming to whether the relief that was asked for by Mr. Mistry, whether he should have been reinstated or not, that is another question, of course. But then that is a natural fallout of the judgment, because in case you say that appointment, that his removal, hasty removal and sudden removal was illegal, the natural fallout is yes, then you should be reinstated, and rightly so, for I think a smooth transition. That 4 weeks window has been given, of course, because they also have a right to file an appeal. So that is another aspect of it. But to say that the company will get into disarray, I mean somehow I don't agree with my friend.
Okay, all right. So let's hear what Mr. Shankar has to say about all of this. Mr. Shankar, so what happens to the Tata Group's operating companies after this verdict?
This verdict is very far-reaching in the sense that our largest group, which has such a strong place in the economy, has been given a shock, and share prices have fallen, and certainly in the top management of all the group companies there will be uncertainty, because uncertainty whether Mr. Mistry will come back, whether he will not come back, and if so, certain CEOs, CMDs, whether they will continue, will need to make way. So what this case highlights, without going into the legal merits of the judgment, is a problem that in commercial matters, if very big decisions are taken after such a long gap, they give a shock to the economy. So I would refer to a statement made by a fairly eminent Supreme Court lawyer as to how Supreme Court judgments have partly contributed to the economic problems of the country. So he referred to the sweeping judgments of cancelling coal blocks, which led to the NPAs in the power sector, and the fact is that the coal imports in the country are of an unusually high order and will remain very high when we are sitting on so much coal. The decision on the telecom case again led to 3 sovereign funds investments into India having to be written off, because they came in on the basis of valid legal licenses, and the policy consequences that have followed is the telecom sector, which is in deep trouble. One major player is saying that he may close down operations, and the NPA problem with the banks could be of the order of 400,000-500,000 crores. So I think this highlights the issue that in the judicial system, when it comes to commercial matters, speed is of the essence. So if the final decision from the Supreme Court had been that Cyrus Mistry should be chairman again, if it had come in 6 months, it would have had one implication. Coming after 3 years, it has another implication for the economy. And we don't know, as Sukumar rightly pointed out, that we don't know when the Supreme Court will decide and what decision it would take. So I think there is need for some consensus within civil society and the judiciary and all stakeholders, that in commercial matters, please take decisions quickly. The economy cannot afford this kind of long drawn out legal tussle with long, well written judgments and then well argued cases challenging those judgments, because the economic consequences are very, very high.
Sure.
And there was a classic case ages ago, which many people don't remember, but on a tax matter, suddenly the Supreme Court took a view that the amount to be paid by one company would have led to its insolvency. Then they recognized that there is a problem and they sought a mediatory solution of some middle ground. So I think we need to see that the judiciary works for the manner in which at least it doesn't hurt the economy. Justice must be done, the law must be complied with. There is one other dimension, and I think that's partly the problem in the law, I think. You see, if the promoters have run the country badly, run the company badly, clearly there is a case for this process of bankruptcy and ejecting the promoters. The banks could and should have been doing it earlier. But if the company is being well run, then the letter of the law and its interpretation should give the promoters enough space to run the company and not be tied into some degree of bureaucratic processes in running a company. So, for instance, in a company like this, if it can be plausibly argued that if the promoters are uncomfortable with the CEO, the only way to remove the CEO is a dramatic action like this. You cannot give him a show cause notice, then rate him badly, then wait for months and then remove him. Because if a CEO has to be removed of such a large group, then it has to be done like this with a degree of suddenness.
Right.
I mean, similarly in government, if some very high official for some reason has run into difficulty and has to be removed, he has to be removed with a degree of suddenness. I mean, you can't have a long drawn out process. So that's a problem with the whole structure that we have created. I think too much emphasis on, process may be also hurting the economy.
All right. Shubhamoy, since we are talking about the group itself, and let's not forget Mr. N. Chandrasekaran was to take several key decisions really in the months to come on Tata Motors, Tata Steel and so on and so forth. So what happens to all of that now in the next 4 weeks?
Well, first thing, Cyrus had resigned from 4 companies, and from the others he was removed. So what happens is, going by this, it's a moot point now that whether he can now walk into the boards directly. Tata Tele, I think, Tata Sons and 2 more, where since he had resigned. So it might mean that he can actually move in directly. Now that's a point whether the boards will have to decide that do they have the time to constitute another board meeting and then take him in. And obviously that will take the issue of whether who comes in whose place does he come in. Does he come in as a chairman, or does he come in as a independent, as a director with the rights of a director? So these 4 companies will immediately be in, they'll have to think about it even before this 4 weeks window is over. And that's a serious issue, because these are the companies from which he has resigned. Those companies from which the boards had taken the decision to remove him, they have a better, within the Tata Group, those companies have a better situation, in the sense that they can then ask now the board that, look, the NCLT has passed this judgment, so therefore we have to constitute a resolution to take him back. So they will have the window. So essentially then the Tata Group itself is now going to be running, for some time now, on a divided track, that some would have to run fast to accommodate him, and may not be able to get the chance to wait for the decision of the Supreme Court, because he can run for a contempt of court petition if it's not done immediately. And if that is so, then immediately the chairman's position, Mr. Chandrasekaran's position, becomes difficult, because he had replaced him. So there is a very, very major issue coming up. I'm not even getting into the problem of what happens with the Tata Trusts, because Tata Trusts by themselves are going through a sweeping change.
Right.
And there, all the changes have happened after Mr. Cyrus Mistri's departure. In fact, a large part of his departure was linked to the question of how to administer the Tata Trusts. Because the Tata Trusts essentially controlled the Tata financial fortune, and they were divided once. And it was understood that one of the reasons why he was removed was because he was changing the returns that those trusts were to get from the Tata companies, because he was raising the cash flow. I agree with Ajay about the fact that this point about that whether he had done a good job. He had definitely done a good job. There's no doubt about it. The cash flow in the groups had definitely improved during his time, which is why when he had come in, the shareholding, the markets had started rewarding him. But then 3 years have passed after that. The groups have now moved on to a different path altogether. And in that group, whether now when he comes in, all these questions will arise. So it's actually an extremely difficult position that the Tata Group has run into.
Right.
And it'll require a considerable amount of unbundling one by one before we see the end of it. So the new year is going to be particularly difficult for the Tata Group now.
Okay, all right. And Ajay, as far as the options are concerned, what are the legal options that the Tata Group has now going forward?
Legal options: one, going to the Supreme Court and of course challenging it. B, in case they want, and possibly they would want, that Cyrus Mistry shouldn't come back, then they certainly have an option, regardless of this order and regardless of that 4 weeks window. So all that they need to do is pass a no confidence motion. I mean, call up a meeting and pass a no confidence motion in that board meeting. No confidence motion by all the shareholders, and that way Cyrus Mistry just cannot come, because then he'll have to leave, because there's no confidence. So that is one of the options, regardless of the fact that 4 weeks window is gone. And assuming for a moment there's no stay by the Supreme Court, assuming for a moment, even in that case, Tata can certainly do this. And I think the lawyers of Tata must be actually contemplating this action only. Now coming back to it, when you say that, see this, if one were to look at this judgment in entirety, the judgment is more about procedural propriety or impropriety rather. Because now having said that, if they were to once again do the removal, if I may say so, or this passing of no confidence motion in the proper way, in a proper manner, without taking a hasty or such decisions, then Mistry actually cannot come back. That is certainly one of the ways. Another way, as I have already said, they can go to the Supreme Court and challenge the order. So
right.
these are the two options.
Okay. So Mr. Shankar, does all of this really, and the verdict itself at the end by the NCLAT, open the Pandora's box once again as far as governance in the corporate sector is concerned in our country?
First of all, I'd also like to add a comment to what the previous panelist has said. I mean, I think Mr. Cyrus Mistry would be well advised to claim moral victory, pursue the restructuring of the Tata Trusts, where his commercial interests are at stake, and take the moral high ground saying that I have won a moral victory, I have no desire to head the Tata Group. I mean, he would end on a high note, and he can pursue his legal battle about the management of the Tata Trusts, where he has a huge stake as a part of the contributors to the trust. Because otherwise we have this long battle in the Supreme Court, because I don't see the Tata Group accepting the judgment without challenging in the Supreme Court. Now, when the Supreme Court will decide, how long it will take, who knows. And thereafter, if Mr. Cyrus Mistry still succeeds, then as he is rightfully pointed out, that the Tata dominant promoters of the Tata Trusts have the power to remove him. So it's just keeping the whole set of group companies in limbo for a long time, which is certainly not desirable. The larger issue is, as I had said earlier, that I think the pursuit of high moral ground and principles and prescription of too many procedural and other requirements need to be balanced with the need for animal spirits in the market and high growth of companies and so on and so forth. My sense is that the pendulum is swinging a little too much on the side of over prescription of processes and so on and so forth. So as a friend of mine pointed out the other day, there's so much is being made of minority shareholders, but after all they've invested in the company voluntarily. They can always sell their shares and go out if it's being badly managed or it's performing badly. But this whole view that independent directors will somehow be like an opposition in parliament, keeping the management on check and ensuring good governance, is pursuing something which is neither really achievable, and maybe it also is setting the ground of similar problems in some other companies, who knows.
Right, yes, Ajay.
See, this case actually is about a tussle between independence of board of directors vis-a-vis the powers of trust appointed to nominee directors. So this entire law, as sir is actually talking about, minority shouldn't actually take the entire company to a kind of standstill. So that's not really the, I would say, aim of the law also. Law is such, I mean, this case especially was, I would say, a tussle between independence of board of directors versus the power of these two trustee appointed directors. So the case, if one were to say that the summum bonum of the case is that these two people cannot really decide on each and everything. You'll have to actually come to the board of directors also, because whereas articles of the company actually provided otherwise. Although the law is certainly, law says, and NCLAT actually recognized it, that we do not really have powers to meddle with the articles. That we certainly do not have. But in case it is prejudicial to the interest of the minority or to the public, because it's a public company after all, then certainly we can actually intervene, and that's what has been done. So I think we need to look at I would say, the scheme of the act, because one needs to protect the interest of everybody, every group, even if it's a small minority group.
Okay, all right. Closing comments now from all my guests with the best way forward, starting first with you, Shubhamoy. What kind of impact is all of this going to have on the economy, because it's the Tata Group you're talking about at the end of the day?
Absolutely, very bad. Several group companies were supposed to be coming up with investment decisions. Remember, for instance, Tata Motors is going to take major decisions on EV and all those things. The automobile sector is facing a slowdown. None of those decisions can now be taken. They are huge decisions which have implications, and a board at this position will not be able to take. Ditto for even other things. For instance, Tata Group, after the Cyrus Mistry episode, decided on a settlement with they're selling out the shareholding in Tata Tele. It's something that can be again reopened, that whether they have the right to do it on. If Mr. Mistry wants, he can definitely drag them into it. So you know what, the point is that Mr. Mistry's term was going to end in 6 months after the court judgment. I mean, in 2016. As he's saying that he can decide to take a moral ground, but then if he decides, and he says that, look, I can actually deliver better value.
At the end of the day also has deep pockets, so they can have a long drawn battle with the Tata Group.
And remember, Mr. Tata, Ratan Tata, is 82. His birthday comes a few days very soon, I think in December. And Cyrus Mistry is 51 and has deep pockets. So this is not 18%. A fight that is going to be can end or might end after the amount of bloodletting that's already happened. And that can only mean bad news for the Indian corporate sector.
Okay, all right. So what's the best way forward, Mr. Shankar, as far as all of this is concerned?
First would be Mr. Cyrus Mistry taking the moral high ground and pursuing his interests in the Tata Trusts.
But that's a very personal decision.
The other is the Supreme Court recognizes the gravity of the situation, does day-to-day hearings and decides in a few days. After all, they keep ordering many lower courts to have day-to-day hearings and settle matters. So if they choose that way, they could close the chapter by early February.
Okay, all right. Do you see the government stepping in at some point in time?
Government shouldn't. Why should government?
No, but the government will have to, because the ROC will have to now take cognizance. I mean, this is an NCLAT decision. So the ROC and others will have to take a decision, and they will have to pass orders. And that's a further round of complications that will be coming in, which will have to be then unrolled or sort of re-emphasized after the Supreme Court thing. So the government willy-nilly is not a party, but will have to take consequent decisions based on what the NSLAT
my
has said.
view would be that the ROC etc. should act in accordance to the court orders, but a policy decision within government, I think, would not be advisable. in this
Sure,
issue.
sure. All right. And Ajay, close the show for us with your concluding remark on the best way forward.
I think the best way forward is to comply with all the provisions, like section 14 for instance. When you I don't know who advised them to convert the company, you know, and not follow section 14. Section 14 is about converting a company from public limited to private. You know, this is just one of the instances. While the dispute is pending, I don't know who advised them to take such steps. So I think they should follow this the letters of the law and follow the procedure properly. I think if they had, in fact, even if now, as I have already said, and I am reiterating at the cost of repetition, even if now they think of following the procedure properly, and then let us say, you know, remove him, they can certainly do that.
Okay, all right. It's all within the ambit of the law. And
Yes.
It's something that they can do legally, is what you're
Do
suggesting.
it within the four corners of law.
Okay, all right. On that note, then we'll call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. What's coming out of this discussion is that, Tata Group is, of course, heading into a tough time going forward because of the NCLAT decision. But the panelists are hoping that Cyrus Mistry takes the moral high ground and puts an end to all of this controversy so as to ensure that the economy and the Tata Group itself does not suffer in the long run. With that, it's a wrap. See you again next time.